Hey guys, welcome to this week's Friday Waffle. Yeah, hope you've had a decent weekend, or sorry, I hope you had a decent week, I should say. I'm actually recording this a day early because by the time you're watching this, I will hopefully be in the cinema seeing Trainspotting 2. I loved the original film. I actually watched it, when did I watch it? I watched it on Tuesday, I think it was, earlier this week. It's a fantastic film. I mean, it takes me right back. You know, it's such an iconic film. It's pretty gritty. Quite a bit of. I mean, it's not for kids, that's for sure. And I kind of actually forgot just how kind of down and dirty it is. You know, there's a lot of bad things happen in it, but it's an entertaining film nevertheless. And it'll be interesting to see just what the second one's like. So looking forward to that. So I'm seeing that tomorrow night, which is actually tonight when you're watching this waffle. Well, you may be watching this a year from now, so it might not be tonight, it might have been a year ago, but you know what I mean. So, what have I been doing with myself? I was running wise. I mentioned I was going to do a head torch run with my mate Tommy, which we did do. We headed up to a place called Tyndrum. We left here, what time did we leave? We left about 5 o'clock. We arrived up at Tyndrum for about 7 o'clock at night. Of course, it was pitch black at this point, and it was really, really foggy. So we put the head torches on, and we started running to a place called Bridge of Forky. It's about 8 miles, and obviously it's pitch black, but you know, great fun. But as we were approaching Bridge of Forky, we noticed this really bright light, and we're like, "What on earth's that?" You know, I thought, couldn't figure out what the light was, and we started thinking, is it a house? And I thought, there's no houses along this. I mean, you're talking about the middle of nowhere. I don't know if any of you guys have been up the West Highland Way, but it's completely in the middle of nowhere. And then as we got closer, we thought, wait a minute, there's actually a car parked, and we could see guys standing. Then as we got closer, we realised it was the bloody police. So when we got there, we had to go through a gate, and my mate's like, I hope you're not coming to arrest us. And the guys are like, everyone okay, guys? And we're like, yeah, we're just out for a run. Ah, right, okay. He goes, where are you heading to? So we told him. The guy's like, aye, good luck with that. So yeah, we're probably the only two people to ever have a search party by the police put out for us. But at least, to be fair, they were probably, well, they may have been there thinking we're up to no good. But you know, it's still good to think that if you were in some trouble, that you know they were there, sort of thing. So yeah, but we got back. We eventually got to Glencoe at midnight, and it was about 18 miles in total we're on. So it's pitch black, heavy fog, and it was bloody cold. It was really, really cold, but really good fun. Really enjoyed it. So that was my running. This week, have I been doing very much? Let me think. Oh, aye, bloody hell! How could I forget? I've got a PS4, and it comes with the stock 500 gig drive. Now, anyone else that has one of these, and it only has the 500 gig drive, it sounds like a lot. But what I didn't realise was, by the time you actually install the operating system, there's a massive, massive chunk of space that you can't use. Now, on my 500 gig drive, I had maybe, I don't know, maybe two or three full games installed, and maybe about, I don't know, 10, 20 of the indie games, and that was it. Didn't have any more room for anything else. I mean, I was wanting to, what was I wanting to do? I was wanting to play a game, Skyrim, in fact, yeah. Wanted to play Skyrim, and before I could install it, I had to uninstall, I think it was Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a pain in the arse, because you know it's not like a 5-minute job. These things take up about 60 gig of space, and you know when you put the disc in, it has to install it, then it's got to download the updates. So yeah, it's a real pain in the arse. So I know Lactobacillus Prime, he he had mentioned about putting a 2 terabyte drive in. So I had some money that I got for Amazon vouchers for Christmas. So using that plus there was a tenner off voucher thing code which I used. I got this 2 terabyte drive. It cost me like 50 quid. That was by the time I took off the, my vouchers and that kind of thing. So, it is simplicity itself to install the drive. If you've never done it, it's quite literally slide the top cover off, loosen a large screw, pull out the caddy that's got the old drive in it. There's 4 wee screws, loosen them, swap the drives around, put the 4 wee screws back in, slide it into the unit, put the big screw back on, replace the cover. It took me probably 3 minutes all in, well maybe slightly more, a slight exaggeration, but it is absolutely simple to do. Then the only other thing you have to do is you need to, before you go and swap the drive, if you've got any saved game data, make sure you back it up, unless you're quite happy to lose it. But it's dead easy. You just use a USB stick and you copy the saved data across the USB stick. And then you have to put the operating system on the USB stick. You need to create a folder called PS4, and then inside that you have a folder called Update. So you put the update file inside that, which you can download from the PlayStation website, and then install the software. And I've spent the last 4 days basically putting all, I don't know how many games I've got about maybe 15 games up there, installing them all in the drive. And I've also installed every single game which I have acquired from excuse me, the PlayStation Plus thing that I'm a member of. So yeah, I've got about over 100 games in it. That includes all your indie games, and I think it's taken up about just under a terabyte, and I've got about 800 gig left, so that should give me plenty of space. There's tons of games that I've got on it that I probably won't ever play, but it's nice to have them, because the thing is, I was getting all these games from PlayStation Plus and I simply couldn't play it because I didn't have any space. If I wanted to download it, I'd need to take something off. So I would strongly suggest, if you do have a PlayStation 4 or you're going to get one, make sure you put a bigger drive in it. You absolutely need to, unless you're one of these guys that you only play one game until you finish it, then you play something else. That's fine, then you can probably get away with a 500 gig drive, but it's a pain in the arse having to take stuff off. So yeah, following on for that, what was I talking about? I can't remember what I was talking about. I think it was one of my waffles, it might have been last week. Somebody mentioned about the, I was I moaning about the standard of games that you get given away with PlayStation Plus? I can't remember, but somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody commented, and it was a very, very valid comment. What they said was, when back in the PS3 days, you didn't have to pay to play online with your PlayStation 3. You always had to pay on the Xbox, but not on the PlayStation 3. So then when Sony brought out the PlayStation Network membership thing, which you pay for, they would give you games. They would give you like AAA titles, maybe a year old, whatever it was, but you're getting all these games. So technically, unless you weren't too bothered about playing the latest games, you could actually just not buy any games and just take out PlayStation Plus and just play the games that they give out, which is excellent. So of course I've got the PlayStation Plus or the PS4 like most people. Now the thing is, I was kind of moaning about I'm not going to say the games are shit, but the biggest majority of games that they give away with the PlayStation Plus are indie games. Now I'm all for these little companies producing new games, but the thing is, a lot of them are quite similar, very samey, and they don't show off the PlayStation 4 to its best, of its ability. Now I didn't pay that money to play a game which I could quite easily play in a PlayStation or a PlayStation 2, whatever it is. And that's the problem with these indie games. They're on low budget. So yeah, they may be really fun to play, but they don't have the fancy graphics that you want from a AAA title. And so far, I think there's only been, what did they give away? They've given away NBA 2016. They've given away a sort of it's a Saints Row, but it's not a full game. They've given away a Tomb Raider game, but again, I don't think it's like the full thing. They've only maybe given away half a dozen full price games on the PlayStation Plus, and the rest of the stuff, like this month for example, it's just been indie games, and I think that's a bit rubbish. And the person who commented, again, I apologise, I can't remember who it was who mentioned it. What they said was the reason that Sony are no longer giving away AAA titles is because they know that in the past they knew that was what encouraged people to take out PlayStation Plus, was the fact that they're getting these full price games. But now you have to have PlayStation membership to be able to play online. So most people are going to have it anyway. So there's really no requirement for Sony to give you full price titles, because why should they bother when they know that people are going to be paying for the PlayStation membership anyway. So whether that's true, I don't know. It does sound quite like a viable reason why there's very, very few kind of full price games. I mean, the first game that I bought, what was it called again? Killzone. That's been out for what, 2 years, 3 years? That came out on release, and why haven't they given away a game like that? You know what I mean? It does seem a bit rubbish to me. I'm not quite sure we're getting value for money. I certainly don't want to pay 40 quid a year just to download indie games that are quite small, that look like they could be done in a sort of an earlier console. So yeah, that's my whinge about the PlayStation. But yeah, I've just been busy putting everything on it, and after about 4 days of basically leaving the thing on permanently, it's now downloaded everything. Thank goodness. So anyway, excuse me, before I forget, the mug front. I'm still waiting on some money to come in for the mugs that I've got. Once I have got that in, what I'm planning to do is tot up the total of money I was given, and also take off the cost, the cost of the mug plus the cost of me posting it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a payment to Just Giving for the Macmillan thing. So yeah, and I says I have got a few people wanting mugs, so I think there's 4 people in total wanting them. If you do want a mug, please let me know, because the more people that want them, well, the more money it gets raised, which is excellent. And more than well, that's the important thing. And I was going to say the other part as well is it brings the postage down as well, which means a greater donation to charity as well. So I know everyone's got them, which is excellent. So yeah, cool beans. Right, I've got a few questions here. Acidonia is asking. There we go. Sorry, yeah, you were the man that told me. Yeah, they get a game for free for only a month thing, and the Switch is true. Bloody hell. As for Sony only giving out indie titles through PS Plus, they do this because the big titles used to be the reason to buy PS Plus, but now you get it for online play, and you just gave up putting big titles on it. Yep, just what I said. Thanks for that, man. I couldn't even remember who it was, and I've got the answer right in front of me. Right, first question. I saw an MSN article the other day going on about things that they think will not exist in 50 years' time. And they were putting absurd things like cameras, metal keys, printers, plastic bags, plug-in ports, and even physical money on the list. This got me wondering, why is it people these days want things like this to happen when it will only make things even more complicated for everyone? Fair point. I mean, sometimes technology exists just for the sake of it existing, and there's really no purpose to it. I mean, you can do your Apple Pay thing, your smartphone pay, where you scan your phone. I've not done that yet. I must admit, it doesn't feel right to me. I prefer to either hand money over or use my debit card, so that way you kind of feel you're paying for something. For me to buy something and then just use my phone, it wouldn't really feel like I was paying for it, which I know is a lot of nonsense. One thing I do use and I love it is the my debit card has got the contactless thing. So rather than having to put your card in and type in your number, you just swipe it. Again, it's like witchcraft. It's pretty scary that you don't even have to sort of make contact with the thing. But it's interesting. With is doing away with money, is that a good thing? I don't know. I guess it stops people getting assaulted, because they're carrying money sort of thing. But then they could just nick your phone, whatever sort of thing. But I don't know. Sometimes I think technology exists just for technology's sake, and it's not really. Is it going to increase your standard of living? Is it going to really make things easier? I mean, there's a metric ton load of technology, which is amazing, and it really helps things. But like online banking is fantastic. I mean, back before online banking, you had to bloody well go down to the bank and pay money in. Or if you wanted to go and see the bank manager, you wanted to pay a cheque in. Saying that, you've still got to do that with a cheque. You've still got to take it down to the bank, I think. I don't think there's any way of paying money in from a cheque unless you're actually in a bank. So, but yeah, in the main, I says there's lots of fantastic inventions and technologies, awesome. But there are some things, I mean, you're saying here about keys and printers and plastic bags and that kind of stuff. Well, plastic bag, what's the alternative to a plastic bag? You still need to be able to carry stuff. So I don't know about that one. I mean, the thing is, the thing that I'm sitting talking to you, looking at just now, my phone, I mean, that has replaced the camera for most people. Unless you're a big photography fan, it's certainly replaced the camera for me. It's my general web browsing, it's my camera. I don't play games in it, but I know a lot of folk do use smartphones for games. What else does it do? Use videoing on it. I can use it for Skype, I can use it to phone, I can use it for my calculator. It's replaced so many things, which is good and bad, I think, because if your phone goes down, then that's you're kind of screwed. But yeah, I mean, as far as keys are concerned, I mean, to get into a car now, I don't even have to take the key out of my pocket. The key's in my pocket, and all I do is I touch the handle with my hand, and it knows that I've got the key, and it opens it up. So it's only a matter of time before they'll replace a lock with that, in a house. So rather than you having to put the key in, you'll just go and tap the button and it'll unlock. But is it good? I don't know. Some things are great, some things not quite so much. Number 2, do you think it's right for companies to remove any history of their cancelled projects or censor their projects? Microsoft did this recently with an Xbox One title called Scalebound. It was announced 2 years ago, but recently cancelled, but now they're trying to remove any gameplay videos of the game from existence. I'm aware that happens. Do you think it's right? Well, technically, it belongs to them, so I think they're well within their rights. If they don't want people to see a partially completed project, then they're perfectly entitled to do so. I can understand why they would do that, because if they've pulled a project, they've probably done it for a couple of reasons. It might be money, it might be that they feel that the quality of what's out there is shit. So the last thing they want, if they pull the plug on it, the last thing they're going to want is for people to, like myself, to make videos looking at a game that was never released, which technically may be substandard as far as Microsoft are concerned. So I can understand why they wouldn't want, cancelled projects being there. And the fact, if a game's cancelled, then what's to stop another company looking at it and thinking, oh, I bet a wee minute, this is a great idea, I think we could use it. So yeah, I do totally. I think at the end of the day, it belongs to them. Whatever they've made is theirs. and I do totally understand why they wouldn't want to leave stuff available for the reasons that I've just given. So no, I think it's pretty fair, to be honest with you. Do you wish, excuse me, do you wish the games industry, excuse me, I've still got a bloody cold. Do you wish the games industry was like the film industry and actually cared about preserving its history instead of just throwing it away with every new console generation? Yeah, that's, you know what, that's a really, really good point. I mean, yeah, you're right. You know, the movie industry, there are movies, pretty much every movie ever made is probably still available, because there are companies that will, you know, archive them. Probably companies, Universal, Warner Brothers, all these companies, they probably keep copies of their films, but there's loads of kind of archive places that will hold all these things, you know, for history purposes. I mean, there's a website, I can't remember what it's called, and it basically, it's an archive of every website that's ever been written. I don't know how up to date it is, but you know, again, that's their way of trying to preserve history. You know, preserve all the early websites. But games, you're right. There doesn't appear to be anyone doing that right now. I think because it's no different for films. I was going to say, because the video games industry is just separate companies. You know, your Activisions, your EA, your Bethesda, your Nintendos. None of these companies are, I would say, are interested in any other companies. You know, at the end of the day, they're, you know what, at the end of the day, they're only in it to make money. Is there anything to be gained by these companies keeping copies of their games? I don't know. Thing is, if Activision was to go bust tomorrow, what would happen to all their games? It's kind of been left. It's one of these hobbies that's been left to individuals to maintain. I mean, obviously, MAME, excuse me, the ideal thing would be, and it may well happen, that's where emulators come in. You know, MAME was set up to preserve all these classic video games, and it's done a cracking job. It's a nice side effect that we can actually play them as well. But yeah, all these games, your Robotrons, your Space Invaders, your Pac-Mans, all your arcade games, they're archived in digital form, you know. I mean, the actual machines themselves don't exist. I suppose it is harder because a film is just a film. You can easily put a film onto, you know, you can turn it into a digital file, and that's it. You've got the film there. Computer games, yeah, you can make them. You can, you know, at the end of the day, a computer game is just code. So in theory, you could have all your games. You could have all these games stored somewhere. The difficulty you've got is actually using them. I mean, as we all know, hardware is only built. It's a throwaway society that we live in. Hardware is only built to last until the next console comes out. So Nintendo really aren't interested in your N64, your SNES working. In fact, they'd probably prefer if they didn't work, because in that way they can still make people buy SNES games through like your Switch thing that we were talking about before. So yeah, you've got the hardware aspect. Hardware is not going to last forever, and it's just basically in the lap of the gods, or it's in the laps of collectors like myself, you know, to keep them. But it's not like the stuff that I've got here isn't exactly accessible to anybody else, so that's not really doing the point. What would really have to happen would be some sort of corporation or government funded organisation was to buy up every single console and computer and buy a copy of every single game ever released, which is probably quite difficult to do now, you know, considering the age of some of these things, and basically have them there. I mean, a lot of the games are available through torrent sites, but they're classed as illegal. So yeah, it's one of these things. I don't think it'll ever happen. The thing about games is it's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population want to be able to play old games. Most people want to play new games. Once they get a new console, they're not interested in playing old games. So guys like you and I are of an absolutely minute percentage of the population. So it's really not important to that many people, probably besides us, that there is no archiving of games. But it would be sad if 30, 40, 50 years time and when I'm gone and we're all gone, you know, my daughter's kids wouldn't ever be able to see what a Spectrum looked like, or you know, what was this game, Manic Miner? They'd look at a history book, Manic Miner. What was Manic Miner? I don't know. You know, it would be great if they could have somewhere they could go. I mean, there are places like the Museum of Computing that's down south somewhere, and they've apparently got quite a nice collection of stuff. But that's just one little place. It really needs some big world organisation to do that. But is it going to happen? I don't think so, because the thing is, computer games, it's still, although it makes more money apparently than Hollywood, it's still never had the respect it deserves. It's still always looked upon as being something that kids do, and that's, I think we're always going to find that really, really hard to change. So yeah. Righto, thanks for the questions, Squire. That was very much appreciated. Next, Mr. Down the Rabbit Hole again. Thanks, Kev. For the Friday Waffle, hi Alan. How far back do you keep previous generation consoles? For example, when the PS4 came out, did you consider getting rid of any of your previous PlayStations? With the Switch coming, I am wondering if Nintendo fans are retiring any of their older machines. Secondly, what do you do with old games or consoles you don't play anymore? Right, I think you know me better, Kev, to get rid of stuff. Absolutely not. When a new console comes out, I don't get rid of the old one. I mean, back in the day I would have, because, you know, the prices of these things are so expensive. So if you wanted, when I had the Commodore 64 and the Atari ST came out and I wanted to buy it, I had to sell the Commodore 64 to be able to fund my my Atari ST. So yeah, there's that. I mean, it was a money point of view, but now, you know, the resale value of stuff isn't very much. So, you know, to sell a second-hand PlayStation 3, you would get, I don't know what you'd get for it, 50 quid, something like that. Saying that, it's really got nothing to do with the money. I just like having a large collection of consoles. I mean, you're asking about the PS4. Well, I've got my PS4 there. I've got my PS3. Where's my PS3? Right. Oh, my PS3's over there. I'm like, where the hell is it? It used to be up there. So PS4, PS3, PS2, PS1. Then I've got my Xbox 360, Xbox One's downstairs. So in answer to your question, Kev, I'm looking up there. In answer to your question, Kev, absolutely not. I don't get rid of them. I just keep them, you know. So the other part of your question is, what do you do with machines that you don't use, games you don't use anymore? I've never seen myself as being a collector for collector's sake. You know, I like to buy, if I buy a machine or a game, it's because I want to be able to use it, not just to, I'm not one of these people interested in buying a machine and having it sitting on a shelf never to be used. The same with games, you know, people that buy a box game and it's still sealed, you know, what's that all about? The first thing I would do is open it. Saying that, I've simply got too much stuff. I've got way too much stuff that I couldn't possibly use everything. I do try and make a point of sort of recycling my consoles. When I say recycling, I don't mean get rid of them. I mean using them. What I'll sort of do is I'll say, right, tonight I'm going to just play my Commodore Amiga, and then another night I'll just play the SNES and 3DO, and you know, I'll try and do that. But I've got systems. I mean, the best example of system I've got is, what do you call it? I have got a Sega Master System, which is, where is it? You know what? It's up It's up in my cupboard. It's in my cupboard. It's not even plugged in. I don't think I've even switched it on. I think I switched it on to test it. And I've got about, I don't know, I've got about maybe 30, 40 games for it underneath on that shelf unit thing. And I have simply never ever played it. And I've thought about selling it. And sometimes the thought of actually the hassle of going and advertising stuff kind of puts me off. The thing is, as well, is I think to myself, what would I get for a Master System with 40 games? I might get maybe £100 if I'm lucky, something like that. I suppose it depends on the games. And £100, I'm not saying it's not a large chunky money, but if I did sell it, I would end up using the money for petrol, for food, and before I know it, a couple of weeks' time, the money would be away, and I've no longer got a Master System. Whereas if I don't sell it, I've still got it. So yeah, I am a bit of a, I guess I'm a bit of a hoarder. I wouldn't say I'm a collector, but I do hoard things. I don't like to sell anything. I mean, the only console that I sold because I never played it, and do I regret it? Nah, I don't think I do actually, is my N64. I had an N64 with a few games and also had an Everdrive cartridge, and I got rid of it maybe a couple of years ago because I simply had no interest in playing it. There was, apart from Super Mario 64, I had no interest in playing any games. So I got rid of it. If it's a system that I will categorically never, ever, ever play, then I may sell it. But that's about the only system I can think of that I've sold. I just like to collect stuff, so yeah. And you're asking about games. Do I sell games that I've completed? Again, I've done it a couple of times. And you know what? It's I think to myself, what's the point of selling? I'm going to get a tenner for it. I'll get £10 for it, and then I'll think, oh, I've not got that game again, So nah, I do like to. I'm a hoarder, absolute hoarder. So unless I was really not going to use something, or I was trying to, but the only time I do maybe sell stuff that I wouldn't normally sell would be if I'm maybe trying to fund the purchase of something. But in the main, I just hang on to it, which is probably a stupid thing to do. It really is. But anyway, right, that was the second part. Another question: have you seen that new Vectrex 32 cart project? It puts more processing speed into a Vectrex, and maybe one day we'll finally get Battlezone running on the machine. I hadn't actually heard of that, Kev, until you mentioned it. So I did a wee look at, I did a kind of check in it, and I watched a video yesterday, I think it was, about it. It's a Vectrex cartridge, and I think it enables you to program games in BASIC. Something like that, but is it 32-bit? It gives you more memory. It's got, is it a floating point processor, something like that, whatever it's called. It basically increases the, how the thing can actually run. And I've got to say, I would be all over that. Something, if I can buy a cartridge which lets me play like Battlezone or Asteroids, the way there are various Asteroid clones for the Vectrex, but none are that great in my opinion, unfortunately. Whether it's down to, I think you did a video yourself, Kev, actually showing that the Vectrex isn't physically able to play Asteroids properly because it's the slow processor. I would be absolutely all over that, because the thing for me with the Vectrex is sitting up there, it's got the beautiful vector graphics screen, so it wouldn't bother me if it's like not original hardware. The fact that I could play a game using my Vectrex, I would be all over that. So look forward to seeing that, how that kind of develops. Last question from Kev. Finally, have you bought any games from Collector Vision? They make new games for old systems like the NES or ColecoVision, which I personally don't collect, but I think you do. Again, Kev, I've never actually heard of that Collector Vision. Never heard of them. I will have a look. I don't actually own an NES. That's a machine which I've mentioned a few times. I didn't have any affinity to. I didn't have any history. I've never played an NES ever. I've seen one at the computer club I go to, but I've never played it, so I've never had any interest in buying one. Although, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, I may, if it's proven that you can run games on the NES Mini, I'll wait for the price of that to come down and I may buy one. But yeah, ColecoVision, again, it's the ColecoVision was one of these. It was one of the holy grails for me. I mean, I remember playing the ColecoVision back when it first came out. I used to go to the local shop and they always had Donkey Kong running on it, and I just thought this was the most incredible thing ever. So I was after a ColecoVision for a long time. I did eventually get one, thankfully. Now, it doesn't get used all that often. It's not a machine that I've got permanently set up. Got to say, the controls are about the worst controls I've ever used for a machine. The controls are dire. Part of the other reason for me not playing it very much is I can emulate it on so many systems, so I don't need to plug the ColecoVision in. And another big part for me, and I dare say there's some way of changing that, is the only way to output the ColecoVision, at least the one I've got anyway, is through the RF, which is the old analog aerial thing, and it's a lot of faffing about with the TV. It is a lot of faffing about, which is a bit disappointing. I should have known that. I mean, it's a bloody ancient machine, but these reasons are probably, or these are the reasons that I probably don't use the ColecoVision that much. So as far as looking for games for the ColecoVision, Kev, because I don't use it that much, I've never actually, had a look. But I will go and check it out. I mean, the one machine which I have bought quite a few new games for, and we're talking about it, and that's the Vectrex. I mean, I've got quite a few new games. Vector Pilot being one of them, fantastic machine. So I love the idea that people make new games for old systems. I think that's just absolutely awesome. So I will check it out, Kev. But like I said, I don't own an NES, and the ColecoVision isn't a machine that I use on a day-to-day basis. It's probably one of these systems I should probably technically sell, because I don't use it, but I can't bring myself to do so because I wanted one for so long. And I know it sounds sad, but just having it here is pretty awesome, just to be able to look at. So yeah. But anyway, Kev, thanks for your question, buddy. I always appreciate that. And lastly, Mr. Mark the Morose. You're stranded on a desert island with only your Commodore 64, Commodore Amiga, and 4 games for company, plus the means to load and play them, of course. Which 4 games will it be? Oh, bloody hell. That is a tough one. Now, I don't usually do any preparation for these. 4 games. Commodore 64, Commodore Amiga. I'm assuming it can either be 4 Amiga games, 4 Commodore 64 games, or a mix and match. Oh man, that is a tough one. If I'm on a desert island, it's going to have to be a game that I'm not going to get fed up of. So something like Beachhead, you can only play it so much. Bruce Lee, you can only play it so much. Right, okay, let me think. Yeah, you've put me on the spot here. So 2 games on the Commodore 64. I would go for Drop Zone. It's an awesome game. It is rock hard, but it's you would never get to the end of the game, and you could always improve, I think. So that would be my shoot 'em up. So yeah, Drop Zone, Commodore 64. Second Commodore 64 game. Now I'm not trying to vary it. I'm just going by what I think. Second game would be in the Commodore 64, and it would be Super Pipeline 2, which I go on about at any opportunity. It's a fantastic game. The reason I've picked that is because it is the epitome of fun. It's just an amazingly fun arcade game. And although technically you would get to the end of it, I never cease to have a smile on my face when I play it, and it would cheer me up. So when I couldn't find any food or the weather was crap, I could just fire up Super Pipeline 2 and play that, and that would cheer me up in the lane. So yeah, that would be the two. That would be the first two, and probably two on the Commodore Amiga. I would go for World of Sensible Soccer. Now, I mean, I always preferred Sensible Soccer, but the reason I go for World of Sensible Soccer is because there's so much more in there. There's hundreds of thousands of teams, there's tournaments and what have you. There's just so much in there. So I'd go for that. And the second game, ooh, an Amiga. Oh, bloody hell. It might be, you know, if you asked me this tomorrow, I would come up with different answers. It might be Stunt Car Racer, because it's such an awesome game. That would be my driving game. So I'd have my shoot 'em up, my sports game, my arcade game, and my driving game. So yep, that would be my 4 titles. And the second part of Mark's question is, which game has come closest to being your perfect game? I'm probably looking at it. I think my perfect game has got to be Robotron. For quite a few reasons. It is simple. It is simple to play. You move so you don't die, and you shoot things. And it's the most intuitive controls ever. Left stick moves, right stick fires. You know, there's no hidden agenda, special moves, whatever. It's just the epitome of video games. You know, if you die, it's because it wasn't anything to do with the controls. It's because you basically messed up. It's a game where you play it, you get so much into the sort of the zone. It's a zonal game. You actually end up becoming, you feel you're almost like part of the game. It's just an awesome game. It's got amazing sound. It's simple graphics, but it's bright, flashy pixels, and it just looks awesome. You need to have the sound turned up nice and loud as well. Yeah, the other game that I would have maybe picked would be Defender. I says my good mate Mike, he put together a controller for it for Defender, but I still find it very difficult. I think if I was good at the game, it would possibly be my favourite game, but I've got to go for Robotron 100%. And the last, oh no, there's not. There's still another 3 actually. Do you have any favourite gaming food? I don't, believe it or not, I don't actually spend that much time playing video games. You know, if I am playing video games, it tends to be 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, half an hour here. Saying that, I have been playing Skyrim quite a lot in the PlayStation 4, and I think the fact that I've got this hard drive in the PlayStation 4 will probably start playing it a bit more. But I don't really, I try and eat fairly healthily. So I mean, I have my dinner, my tea and that kind of stuff, but you know, I'll have, like, I mean, I'm sitting here, I've got a cup of tea, that's about it. I don't really sit with food as such. I might have a packet of crisps, whatever, but I don't really sit and game. I think because I don't game for that long, I don't game for big 3-4 hour periods, that I really need to have food. So yeah, probably a bit of dull answer, Mark, but yep, cool. What's been your longest gaming session? Oh man, that's just I've kind of just answered that. I don't have any long gaming sessions. If I was to think what was my longest gaming session ever, I would probably have to go back about 30 years, back to the Commodore 64, and it would probably be Elite, or maybe, what do you call it, Hustler, which is an old pool game for the Commodore 64. It would be a Commodore 64 game that I probably played. I mean, there are me and a couple of mates, and even Football Manager, me and one of my mates, we used to sometimes have these played right through the night. 10 o'clock at night, play right through to before you went to school. Maybe 8-9 hours at a time. But I've not done that for a long time. I mean, even playing Skyrim I'm maybe playing it. I think the longest I've maybe played it on any night it might be a couple of hours. I just don't do big massive gaming sessions anymore, so yeah, probably down to my age, but just finding the time. I'm trying to make YouTube videos, I'm trying to go running, I've got my family and that kind of stuff, and you're working that as well. So, and lastly, any bad after effects? I assume oh you mean about having a long gaming session. I think probably it would have been lack of sleep. So going to school or going to work after playing for many hours, probably lack of sleep. I think that's it. But anyway, listen, Mark, thanks for your questions. Thank you very much to Kev, Acidonia, and to Mark for the questions. Please keep them coming, guys. If you want a mug, please put your comment below. I said because I want to try and, you know, the more people I get to buy mugs, the cheaper the postage becomes, and the more money goes to charity. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching it. As usual, thank you very much for all your continued support. It's always well appreciated. Please feel free to like, comment and subscribe. And finally, thank you very much for watching.